Women's Sports Club members and the broader sports and women's sports ecosystem. Welcome. We're going to give it about 60 seconds for everyone to come in from the waiting room, and then we will get started. So welcome.
Good to see you, Gina.
Good to see you, Ange.
Looking
So
great
happy
these
to have
days.
you.
The nice
Sorry?
red, the red.
Oh, yeah, you know, it's like it's my nod to Taylor and all of the big news
Big
going
news,
on.
huh?
Big week.
Oh yeah.
I love seeing.
You're a Swiftie, aren't you?
I mean, I'm not hardcore. I've got two little boys who are into like classic rock, so there's not a ton of Swiftie
I
going
saw
on.
her at Gillette last year and she played 3 hours in the pouring rain. And I was like, okay,
I know.
you won me over.
I'm into her as an economic and business
Yes,
force.
we put out many reports on the economic impact
That's
she's had.
true. Check out our LinkedIn for our
Still
latest stats
tangible.
on Taylor Swift. All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. A few more people coming in. We are here today for Sports Innovation Lab's Women's Sports Club quarterly meeting. We meet every quarter as Women's Sports Club members. A few pieces of housekeeping for today's session. This is a webinar format, so you can see us. We can't see you yet. We'll make sure to kind of get interactive towards the tail end of our session, but please blow up that chat. We want you guys connecting. This is a community. So introduce yourselves, drop links, promote what you're up to, and most importantly, ask questions to your host today, myself, Angela, a few other folks who will be joining us to speak. So we're going to be using that chat and looking in there to make sure we address the topics that you are most interested in today. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. And you might have heard us chatting at the top of the call, but I am very excited to welcome in the house with us today, Sports Innovation Lab co-founder, four-time Olympic medalist, a member of the IOC, Chief Strategy Officer for LA28, Harvard graduate and hockey legend, Angela Ruggiero. So
Thank you. This is
Angela,
my agent. This is my agent,
I'm a
Gina.
hype woman. I'm a good hype woman.
Takes 20% of everything.
All day.
Gina, you're the best. I'm going to hand it right back to Gina in a little bit, but I wanted to just welcome everyone. We've started the Women's Sports Club over 3 years ago off the back of the FAM Project research. We were the first to market, proud of that, 5 years ago, to say there's a business case for women's sports. Instead of leading with our hearts, which we all do anyway, we should lead with data. It's objective. It is kind of the bread and butter of what Sports Innovation Lab is all about. So we said, let's point that very sophisticated data engine towards women's sports and prove without a doubt there's a massive opportunity, an untapped opportunity. The world is seeing that today, which I love. Investment dollars are flowing in, people are showing up. So what we've done over the last 5 years, and particularly over the last 3 with the Women's Sports Club, is try to take a specific piece of the equation, whether it's media, sponsorship, merch. What are the ways to drive more revenue? What are the ways to kind of mitigate some of the barriers to entry, and distill some of this in a simple way for the market? And so we said, we do this on a daily basis. We service the whole engine from leagues to teams to the media companies, the brands. Why don't we put everyone in the same room? Because good things happen when you work as a team, right? So that's the genesis, I think, for the Women's Sports Club was, how do we drive more dollars, not just insights and data, but then how do we turn those insights and data into dollars for this community? And you can't do it with data alone. Obviously, you need people. So that's where we're at. We have these amazing quarterly meetings. Gina leads them. She's brilliant. You'll hear her. I always learn something. And we try to get together on a periodic basis. We'll walk you through our last event, what our next event is. We want people in that room, like-minded individuals. And again, we're 500 plus members, continuing to grow. Everyone wants a piece. Everyone watches women's sports. Everyone wants to know women's sports. Here we are, we're in that ecosystem. So thank you all for being here. Bring your friends next time. Again, we want to have that community. This, again, is a periodic way for us to keep throwing good insight bites your direction. If there's something there's a topic in particular or a piece of the equation you're like, ah, if I only had the data on this piece, please let us know. We can tailor our next webinar or some of our content around those specific questions. So great community. I hope you all get to meet. We're going to spend the first half. I'm going to hand it back to Gina to talk about a really important piece of the ecosystem. We'll have the back half, as she mentioned. Raise your hand. We'd love people to jump on and communicate, and then certainly join us in our next in-person. But really a pleasure to be here and learn from Gina. So without further ado, our CMO. Yes, I was a 4-time Olympian, but Gina, man, you were a rock star when you played
I
ball.
mean, Boca Raton does
Good
brag
job.
about me as the 1991 point guard champion for the Boca Hoops League. So yes, I may not have a medal picture, but this is as close as I got.
But you're our tell us. Okay, I'll let you introduce the topic. You have the expert who is going to literally help all of us, including myself, understand what, Gina. What are we focused on today?
We're going to go through a new way for sports leagues, teams, properties, and media publishers to battle some of the reasons why they get no's from sponsors to accelerate spending. And we're, like you said, we're going to drop some data and insights on you, and then have a member of our women's sports club community come up and share a new solution, and then end the session with some community discussion and highlights from members of some new amazing launches going on. So with that said, quick recap, because we do have a lot of new faces at each one of these meetings. Why is Sports Innovation Lab stewarding the Women's Sports Club? If you don't know what our day-to-day is, we're a data, insights, and analytics organization. We sit in the middle of the market. We work with brands, media agencies, teams, leagues, venues, to help them connect, understand, engage, and convert the modern sports fan. Since the company's founding 7 years ago, we have always remained on the edge of fandom and the evolving sports industry. We are obsessed with the future and what comes next. And we believe we've entered a new age of sport that is anchored in the new fan. And we have a name for that fan. It is the fluid fan. They are the entire industry's path to growth. We talk about the fluid fan a lot. So you've probably heard this before. You're going to keep hearing it, because this is a fan that is continuously evolving, open to change, empowered to choose. They follow athletes instead of just teams and leagues. They follow values-driven, purpose-driven organizations, not just those with the winning scores and schedules. They're into collectibles. They're obsessed with receiving the content on their time in the format that they want it. This is the modern sports fan. This is the highest value sports fan. And the most fluid fans of all happen to be women's sports fans. This isn't just conjecture. We have proved this with our data, showing that women's sports fans are more tech savvy, they're higher spenders, and a greater percentage of women's sports fans are trendsetters, are the Gen Z, Gen Alpha trend-setting audience that brands and agencies are after. I love this picture. Have you not seen Naomi Osaka's amazing drip from the Open? She also showed up with her bedazzled custom Labubu. And once again, this is just exemplifying that women's sports are the first to lean into trends like Labubus when they take the rest of the market by storm. The reason we know this, the reason we can track which fans are spending on the latest trends, on the Labubus, is because we have built the only consumer data cloud anchored in deterministic purchase data on what individuals actually buy, created specifically through the lens of sports and entertainment. So this allows us to understand, for more than 250 million US consumers, what leagues they follow, what teams they follow, what merch they buy, also what brands and retailers they shop, what bets they place with what betting platform and how often. This is the first consumer graph of its kind for sports and entertainment that has also been built to make sure it is anchored in women's sports. So we have every women's sports team, league, emerging property, merch supplier inside our graph that really allows us to derive a lot of the data and the insights that I'll be sharing with you today. And it helps us work with clients across the entire ecosystem to, as Angela say, deliver those insights, help them reach more fans through our programmatic audience solutions, or enrich their own data to become more savvy and more rigorous with their understanding of who their own fans are. We've also used, and Angela mentioned this, we've also used that graph to release all of our fan project and women's sports reports. These are free for you guys to access. They are full of amazing benchmarks, measurements, metrics, and insights. And we've taken a specific lens. There's a lot of research out there, and we want as much of it as possible on the growth of women's sports from viewership and ratings and attendance. That's not the angle that we take. So this is very complementary to a lot of the other amazing research that's coming out from The Gist and Wasserman's Collective and Paramount. We're taking the lens of the value of the women's sports fan. What are they worth to the community, to advertisers, to brands? So download these reports. They're free. Reach out to us. That's what you can find in our fan project reports. And as Ange said, we went from research and insights to community. So a lot of you are downloading the reports, asking questions about the reports. Let's get in the same room, share our best practices, and accelerate the dollars spent on women's sports. So just a quick reminder, we have a directory of all of our members in the Women's Sports Club. If you want to get a hold of this, reach out to us. We'll send it to you. We're here to deal make. We are here not just to network and say hi. We're here to make some money. So reach out to us. We'll help make introductions. We'll facilitate bringing you guys together in person to get those deals done. So shout out for our directory. And we also want to make sure you are aware of the new program we launched in 2025 to help give women's sports an advantage by utilizing AI. This stuff is moving fast and furious. So we created an educational program to help you kind of level down all the AI pontification and thought leadership and buzzwords, and just understand what is happening in the market today. What are the tools and platforms that you should be testing and working with right now to help you deliver better sponsorship proposals, better newsletters, better collateral, better insights, better intelligence? And how should you be thinking about evolving your own organization and making business decisions around AI? We've had 3 sessions to date. Our third one was just last week. We really hammered home the importance of understanding where your business falls on that spectrum of utilizing and developing with AI tools. Maybe you're looking for something off the shelf. Maybe you're looking for a co-development partner like Microsoft, who joined us and offered free brainstorming sessions with the Microsoft AI team specialized in sports and entertainment. So we're going to drop the stream to this AI program in the link. Take a watch, reach out. We'll help make introductions. We also went through all of the new GPT-5 updates and what really matters and what is probably you won't even notice. So make sure to check that out and scan here. We'll drop the link in the chat. Do not miss our last and final AI Advantage session for the year. It's going to be in person. We'll probably do that in New York in Q4. And as always, we have limited seats for that in person, but we open it up first to the Women's Sports Club. So our first 50 seats to that in-person event are reserved for women's sports executives. So we want to make sure that room is at minimum 50% full with women's sports representation.
And Gina, real quick, this to me is we talked about data cutting through and being objective to move the needle to make investment. I think AI, everyone's paying attention, but why we've leaned in and why we prioritize the Women's Sports Club here is, without a doubt, I think this will leapfrog women's sports organizations that really understand the power of this technology and can apply it across their organization. So would encourage anyone that's able to join to be a part of it.
Yeah, not having a data and analytics team, which many women's sports organizations don't have budgets to have those, it's not as big of a problem when you can be using an LLM or an agentic model to do those data analytics for you for $20 a month. And that's the type of narrative and tools that we go over in that program. So you're totally right. We want to see you guys leapfrog the men's industry. Okay, so moving on, we showed up at WNBA All-Star and so did you. We partnered with another women's sports club member, Legends. So shout out to Legends for partnering with the Women's Sports Club to host an unbelievable networking happy hour in Indianapolis. We thought we'd get about 50 to 75 of you. More than 100 of you showed up, which was awesome. Less so for our bar tab, but you know what? We're here to support. And it was just great to get in person. We played some golf. We had the buy side and the sell side. We shared a few data stats all about the impact of the WNBA fans on key advertiser categories from fashion to luxury to footwear. So, you know, if you were there, would love to hear what you thought about the experience. But the Women's Sports Club was just overwhelmed with the energy that we felt and the fans that showed up in Indianapolis and the business and the deals that were being done. And it was great to see a lot of representation from brands who probably aren't all the way sold in yet for women's sports, but they just knew they had to be in Indianapolis. Brands hate being second, right? So it was amazing to see a lot of them show up and start having those real conversations about investing in the W&W teams. And to that point, we wanted to do a little bit of a data drop around W All-Star and specifically utilizing our sports data cloud and our fluid fan graph to look at how much fans spent on the ground in Indianapolis the weeks of the kind of 2-week period around WNBA All-Star to again prove the point that women's sports fans are worth it. So we took a look at spending on hotels in Indianapolis, and we compared those several weeks in July this year when WNBA All-Star was hosted to the year previous. So right off the bat, spending by sports fans in Indianapolis on hotels increased by 60% year over year. So fans came from out of town. It wasn't just locals. It wasn't people just driving in. Fans showed up from all over the US, all over the world, and hotels saw the benefit. Sports merch. They didn't just show up for the game or to take the Instagram picture or say they were there. They showed up to rep. So we saw 110% increase in spending on sports merch in stores in Indianapolis. So this is sports merchandise transactions made in Indianapolis during the week of the WNBA All-Star doubled, more than doubled versus the year prior. Indoor entertainment, right? It's not just the sports and the travel that get impacted when a women's sports league decides to host a major event in a city. It's also all of the businesses around that. We saw tons of families in town for All-Star, and spending on indoor entertainment, the likes of local Dave & Buster's, also increased by over 100% around WNBA All-Star this year versus last year. And it wasn't just Dave & Buster's. We had some high rollers come to town, and spending on fine dining in Indianapolis increased by 50%. And finally, we mentioned hotels, but travel is always such an important category to advertisers around women's sports and sports in general. And rental car spending increased about double versus the month in the year previous. So without a doubt, the data shows the actual fan spending and the economic impact on key markets in Indianapolis: auto, dining, entertainment, merchandise, hotels, saw massive spikes versus the year prior. So kudos to the W, to Indianapolis for hosting, and most importantly, to women's sports fans who once again, through the data, prove their worth and their value.
It's too bad we couldn't maybe the W arrange for a cut of all that increase in spending, right?
I know, right? I mean, I certainly dropped
Different
a few
economic model.
NGs. So with all of that said, right, with all these data points on every one of these women's sports club meetings that we continue to present to the ecosystem, selling women's sports sponsorships and media should be a layup, right? Your phone should be ringing off the hook, and you should get every RFP back with a big old yes on it, right? Those IOs flying in. Well, unfortunately, we know the reality for a lot of teams, emerging leagues, startup properties, smaller publishers around women's sports. isn't always a fast yes. There's a lot of excuses we hear, right? Well, I already spent my dollars over here. My boss isn't sold in. Maybe the initiative isn't customized enough. Maybe it's too expensive for what I'm getting. But the number one reason that we continue to hear from women's sports properties and why agencies are kind of shot down when they make these proposals to their brands is not enough reach. This is a continued problem, especially at the team or emerging league level where they're just getting started. So I want to spend a good part of the rest of today's call talking about a solution that we've talked about before, but we've never really gone under the hood to this reach challenge. But first, I want to make sure I'm clear on when we say not enough reach, what does that mean? So here we're looking at an example media plan, just an example. This is just for illustrative purposes only. This is not actually Fort Lauderdale's United Sponsors Plan. I'm just a big fan. They're local to me, so I wanted to use them as an example. Here's an example of a sponsorship plan. Maybe you're looking for $200,000. You want to go big. You want to get a sponsor in. And you're going to estimate impressions across your owned media channels for them, from stadium signage, to local events you might be hosting, to ads you'll run on your website, posts you'll put on your own social channels, content you'll redistribute across YouTube, and perhaps your newsletter. You're looking at maybe a combined total impressions for a sponsor's media plan of 2.8 million impressions. Now we know that that's not 2.8 million individuals, because a lot of those individuals who come to the stadium, who buy tickets off the website, who follow on social media are the same individuals. So assume a frequency, the number of times they're exposed to an impression, is around 10. You're looking at a total reach of 282,000 individuals. When you crunch the numbers, as every agency and brand will do when you send them a media plan that looks anything like that, whether that number is 15,000, 200,000, or 2 million, they will get to an effective CPM, which in this example is about $70. And that's giving a lot of agencies hesitation and a reason to say no. But there is a way around this. It is called inventory expansion using programmatic audiences. And the entire industry does this. So we want to make sure that women's sports organizations understand what this is and how it works to see if it could be an interesting solution to help you solve the reach challenge. So I'm going to start with high level, right? This is going to be a little bit of an explain it like I'm 5. So at the highest level, what is programmatic media? Well, programmatic media is reaching individuals off of your owned and operated sites, like your website or your social media handles, where there's limited reach, and finding those individuals wherever they may be, out in the wild west of the internet and addressable media channels, from other websites, other social channels, CTV, streaming, in apps. There's a lot of places they might be, so that you can take your reach from several thousand to several million. All of this is anchored in being able to add programmatic audiences to your media plan. So let's start with, what is a programmatic audience? Consider it a digital file full of unique user IDs that lets ad servers find those individuals all across media. So every ID inside a programmatic audience is a real person. They have been identified and characterized as a certain type of person based on data signals. A lot of times those can be cookies, you visited a site, you followed someone. For Sports Innovation Lab, for our audiences in our graph, they are actual behaviors. Somebody had to do something. They had to make a purchase in most cases. They had to buy a ticket. So we truly know they are a fan, which is very different than a lot of audiences out there, which may be more cookie-based, but both are utilized in programmatic audience development. All of these IDs of these individuals are anonymous. So it is completely privacy compliant, GDPR compliant, but they make sure that your advertising reaches the right fan. So that's a programmatic audience. It's a file of unique individuals. So actually thinking about it in practice, you might be kind of scrolling and looking at some influencers talking about how they make this amazing dessert. Or maybe you actually put some crumble cookies into your DoorDash and got it delivered to your house. And then you later went on to Hulu to watch something and you got served a Talenti gelato ad. Congratulations, you are in the programmatic audience for dessert lovers. And that programmatic audience that Talenti created is probably something like women who are a certain age, who love dessert and have proven that they are purchasing desserts. That's how it works. So once you've got to build that audience. So how do you build that audience? Let's go back to our example pitch. So I'm Fort Lauderdale United. I'm going to pitch to Ulta. I'm going to create 2 new audiences. The first one will be women's soccer fans who also buy beauty brands. Obviously, Ulta is coming to Fort Lauderdale United because they're interested and they believe that fans of women's soccer are valuable to them. So let's create an audience that's anchored in women's sports soccer fans. But let's add on something we also know they care about, which is that they want to purchase beauty brands. Another option is to take your existing fans and build what's called a lookalike model. So in the first instance, we or another partner doesn't actually touch your data. They can build that audience without any of your consumer records. In the second lookalike example, you might hand us, in a secure fashion, a spreadsheet of your own fans, and then we build a lookalike audience of people who behave exactly like them. In either case, you can also set filters like different markets or geography or other demographics. And now you have your own custom programmatic audience, which again is a set of individuals who fit that criteria. One other option is that there are already thousands of these audiences available off the shelf. So for example, these are some of Sports Innovation Lab audiences. If you're starting a new women's gymnastics league, shout out to Giga, right? You might want to find international women's sports fans who follow the Olympics or the Super League or cricket, right? You might be a basketball team and you want to expand outside the W and you really want to target individuals who follow women's college basketball, right? So again, don't need to touch your data. You can go and find and create these off-the-shelf audiences, and each one of these has millions of individuals in it. That's where the extension comes in. Instead of several tens or hundreds of thousands of your fans, you're going to find people that are equally as valuable to the brands that you're looking to work with, but that have millions of individuals in those communities and those audiences. So now you've got the audience, you've got to attach an actual ad to be served to that audience. There's 2 ways to do this. One, your audience partner, like Sports Innovation Lab, can push the audience into your Meta Ads account. So when whoever on your team is buying ads or boosting posts for you, you can actually now serve those ads to that specific audience that you've created. Or you can work with a curated inventory partner. We've got partners like PubMatic or Trailblazing Sports Group who curate premium ad inventory, video inventory, display inventory, newsletter inventory, and they will attach that audience to those placements for you. So what does that look like? You made your audience, you got a file of a couple million women's soccer fans who buy at e.l.f. and Sephora and other beauty brands. We can push it into your ad account. So now it's going to show up when you go into your Meta business and ad account, and you want to buy or boost some ads, and you're going to be able to run millions of impressions that are only served to those individuals. Or we're going to push it through a partner like the Trailblazing Marketplace or PubMatic, and they're going to help and make sure to activate so that those ads hit those individuals in your audience on websites such as The Athletic or Bleacher Report, or through streaming services such as Roku. So now we go back to that media plan, right? And if you recall, you were looking for about $200,000. You had some really high CPMs. Your effective CPM was about $70 for you to reach about 280,000 unique individuals. When you add a line to that media plan for a custom Ulta audience on Meta, let's say, of women's soccer fans who purchase beauty brands, you can add 2 million. You could probably add 5 million because there's a lot of women's soccer fans who buy beauty brands impressions to that plan. And that is going to drastically decrease your overall CPM and almost double your unique reach. So now when you go back to the brand, you might have something that is a media plan that is the same amount. You're still going to go after $200,000 from that brand, but now they're getting close to 5 million impressions with a custom target audience. And the agency can't push back on a CPM that's closer to $40 like they can for one that's $70. And now they've moved from emoji to yay emoji.
Wow, Gina.
Well, but wait, I haven't even gotten to the best part. No, here's what's interesting, right? This is not a shill. Lots of people do these programmatic audiences. You can work with us for them. We hope you do. You can work with other organizations out there who also sell programmatic audiences. But what's key to remember is there is not an upfront cost for this. The audience provider and the inventory partner will create the audience and they'll tell you how much the CPM is. You're going to build a margin on top of that. And you're only going to pay when the brand says yes and that media runs. This is the not even dirty little secret. It's not even a secret. This is how the entire industry runs in advertising and media and programmatic. It's just that it doesn't really look like with everything else women's sports has had to focus on that they've leaned into this type of inventory expansion. So we wanted to use some time today to really explain how this works and start to open the door for, again, you to do this with Sports Innovation Lab, with other partners, some of who are on this call. And the other best part is it works. So this is just one case study of many that we have. Diamond Kinetics is a youth sports partner that makes connected gear for youth sports participants. And when they ran our audiences, they saw an increase of 30% in their click-through rate. They saw an additional 10% lift in first-time customer accounts created. And our audiences that we created for them moved 74% more baseball units and softball units for them on Amazon versus any other kind of standard targeting that they were using. So you'll not just give them more reach, you'll actually be able to talk to these brands like the Ultas and the CarMax and all of the brands that we're pitching in women's sports about performance and media that works, that isn't just about storytelling and brand building, which is important. And only women's sports does it as well as they do. But this is that flip side of helping brands see performance as well.
So Gina, maybe we can open it up because I'm sure there's a lot of questions and I know we have other, but if I'm hearing you right, you're building your own CRM, your own audience. Maybe it's not as big as you'd like it to be yet. It's growing. You're offering a solution to essentially increase the number of audiences that you're serving up to ultimately what we've been talking about, the brands and the partners that want to lean in, but maybe are used to an older model. And so this model, again, allows you to effectively reach in a targeted way the right audiences that those brands in the first place want to attack. Am I hearing you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Does anyone have questions? I want to pull this up because
yeah,
this
please
is such
put them in the chat.
quick and easy way. To your point, it's an out, other industries use this. Sports is a little laggard, but we're trying to, what are the tools outside of just data and research and storytelling and all the things we've said in our reports to build the asset in the right way? Now it's like, no, we have to monetize that asset. So here you go. Here's a quicker way to do that. Any questions?
Yeah, and honestly, all of sports has really lagged behind in inventory expansion. Obviously, the folks like Disney and ESPN and the publishers get it and are doing it. But even a lot of the men's properties don't have the kind of media savviness to be really doing this. And they're just starting to do it now. It's why we're in business. But we just love, you and me always talk about, let's have an unfair advantage for women's sports.
Totally.
Like, we want to see women's sports teams use this technology, use programmatic inventory, use the ad tech that's available to them to really leapfrog, get more of those yeses, show a positive ROI, create studies out of this. I mean, Black Friday is coming up and Cyber Monday. I don't know that women's sports organizations are talking to brands about why their team and their channels are good for Black Friday or Cyber
Yeah.
Monday.
I mean, to me, it's like that's the big point of differentiation. It's the ad tech piece of it, the actual way to do it, which you just explained, but it's also like who you're targeting is very different than traditional men's properties. And those
Yep.
we're seeing those brands slowly come in. Maybe they're dipping their toe in the water. But if you can offer them a quicker solution to that scale they look for, what they've expected, you're hitting a unique audience that wants to be in this space. I'm just seeing so many new entrants come in and ask those questions, like how do I get more involved? We sponsored one thing, at a small clip, but they're like, how do we do this in a more expansive way?
Yep.
And this is your solution. I love it.
Absolutely. So listen, if you're eager to get started, we have what's called an audience desk set up to guide you and help you through this whole process. You can shoot an email to audiences@sportsilab.com and just tell us a little bit about who you are, if you're a brand, a team, a property, a media publisher, who you believe your desired target market is. Hey, I'm pitching to, again, Ulta or Taco Bell. And I'd love to see what you would recommend as an audience that I can put in front of them, around what time. And if you have any ideas of where you might want to run this, if you don't, that's okay too. We'll hold your hand. But don't hesitate to work with us and get started on audience expansion. If you have any questions following this session for me or the audience team, just reach out. We're happy to continue helping provide education and navigation through this programmatic world for women's sports. So any kind of quick questions? I'm going to hop in here. Yes, for podcasters and digital creators. Absolutely. That's another great. I love that idea. There's only so many downloads or listeners that you have as you're starting to build up that podcast. So why not complement a podcast media plan with a programmatic audience? And you're going to use your content as the ads, right? So with your players, your social posts, clips from the game, you can brand those with your sponsor or highlights from your podcast. You brand those with the sponsor on it. And that's what runs as an ad unit across all of this programmatic media. So it doesn't feel separated. It's not like, oh, here's the plan of your sponsorship of the team, and then there's this like weird programmatic media running over here. Not at all. This programmatic media will feel very cohesive because it's going to take the content and the messaging from everything you're doing with the team and with the kind of owned and operated and just expand it. Awesome.
Anyone
So
want to jump in
yeah,
on
anyone else?
camera or have a comment outside of the chat? Come
Well,
on.
if you do, make sure put in the chat, pass me the mic. And in a few minutes, we'll pass you the mic as well. So just drop it in there if you want to come join us on stage and share anything or ask any questions. So also want to give a heads up. Advertising Week is coming to New York, October 6th through the 9th. And Women's Sports Club will be showing up again as Club Women's Sports. If you were able to join us last year, this was one of our largest tentpole events. We welcome more than 200 brands, agencies, properties, players into a fantastic space. This year, we're going to be at a beautiful rooftop, and we're going to have a little bit of thought leadership. We'll always have deal making and then a lot of party because we're here. It's coming up at the end of the year. We're here to celebrate what another banger of a year women's sports has had. We have limited partnership opportunities left. So if you'd like to show up as a partner of that event, please ping me today because we are off to the races and we have some amazing partners already on board for that. So let us know. And then the club, you guys will obviously receive your invites and things in the next 2 weeks for Club Women's Sports at Advertising Week. And something else we wanted to share now is a little bit of a member showcase. So obviously at Sports Innovation Lab, we are all about the data. We talk about and we work with organizations to help them validate fan personas and fan behaviors using our sports data cloud. But we know there's a flip side to that, and that's qualitative, and that's motivations of being a fan. And that's what did you think of the experience? And those are sometimes things that we don't derive from deterministic data, but that help validate. And I was so excited to meet Verena Popik recently, who's a member of the Women's Sports Club, and have her tell me about her platform, Talklytics, because it just felt like finally we started to innovate on the exit survey. And we constantly work with teams who are using, iPads and interns to chase fans at the venue and try to get them to answer 10 or 20 or sometimes 30 quick questions about their fan experience, and then anchor their entire fan experience strategy for the next year off of that kind of quick iPad survey. And there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the survey space. And then I met Verena and what she's building at Talklytics, and I said, you got to come and show the Women's Sports Club what you built, and see, as we come towards the end of NWSL and W season, or kick off other seasons like Gainbridge Super League, what might be possible. So Verena, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the evolution of the survey world and share this product and what you've got for the club.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me. Gina, your energy is just incredible. You're just killing it today. Yes, so a little bit about myself, a little background. How did Talklytics even came about? How did I land in the survey land? My background is actually from the video space, social media video space. I was the first Western hire at what we now call TikTok, back at Musical.ly. Not sure if any one of you guys remember Musical.ly, but I've been in charge of the global rollout, also sports partnerships, have been working with teams. Now, fast forward, the product grew, bunch of social listening apps rolled out left and right. And I've been behind the scenes and I've seen that, not necessarily everything that we share on social media is truthful. So I wanted to figure out how can we be more honest and how can we collect more honest and truthful data for teams and leagues, especially to make more informed decisions. And through that journey also, I realized that through voice, we're 70% more honest. So now I was looking into the first party data kind of collection that we have from surveys and focus groups, and I realized, oh crap, focus groups aren't scalable. Surveys, no one really likes to do. But we found that if you put the voice onto the surveys, we actually have a 30% on average higher participation rate because it's convenient, fast, quick. But also what we get on top of it is actually the emotion. So this is a quick preview on also the product designs. I would also say from my background, what I really am passionate about is helping everyone to express themselves. So since 1997, surveys have not evolved. It's the same concept, the same design, and it's just really, there's a fatigue of the participant. So what I would love to know from you guys, and if you can drop it into the chat, what kind of survey platforms are you currently using? Are you using YouGov? You're working with SurveyMonkey. It would be just incredibly valuable to know, just in general, I guess, for everyone else out there too. And if you have also worked with voice before. And so, yeah, but one of the core values we're getting out of this is also understanding the actual emotion. And I would love for you guys also taking a moment to screen this QR code real quick. I think the Women's Sports Club would appreciate a quick feedback on the virtual meeting we had today. And you get firsthand experience the simplicity of the product and how easy and quick it is to leave some valuable feedback. Now, what we do with this is we actually deliver 50 plus more insights per question. So we use unstructured data and make it into something quantifiable. Now, the quantifiable part actually is explaining to your sponsors, and we've been talking through the last 40 minutes about the sponsorship ROI and how to get more money into the door, explaining to your sponsors the actual value of your fans and your audience, but also understanding how to lock them in further and the value of the sponsors. So in the end, what I would love for you guys to think about today, it's the end of the season. So there's two different things. You need to know your fan, and also you need to prove sponsor impact to lock it in for the next season. So we are very quickly to be set up. We could use 3 smart prompts. We can have different channels from the Jumbotron to through the Teams in-app. But also what Gina really, really loved is the truth booth. Now, Anyone who's going to be at Advertising Week, we will have a truth booth because we're also working with Advertising Week. They're using us for sponsorship ROI insights at their conference. So anyone who's interested in also figuring out how this very cheap and easy pop-up truth booth can be created, feel free to hit me up after this.
Let me just brag on this for a minute. I got so excited about this because traditionally surveys for fans are annoying. Someone's chasing you with their iPad. You kind of wonder, well, the people who are even doing this, like, are they normal? You know, are they really representative, I should say, not normal. Leave it to women's sports to transform the idea of giving feedback into going inside this light up truth booth and talking about what you loved. Maybe the lines for food were too long. You just couldn't believe the sponsor was giving out this amazing free merch today. It actually turns an annoying, task into a fun fan experience. And you could see a line forming at a Liberty game to get into the truth booth, or at the Reign game, to talk about your favorite fan moment or what you hope to see at the next game. So I just really loved and leaned into the idea of having women's sports do something different like this. And then you get a better result on the back end. Like that's, obviously that's the most important, but it's also kind of gravy when you set up, I think, something like this that just adds to the fan experience of coming to the game. And it's blown up and it just looks cool. I want a truth booth.
Yeah, I love it. And exactly, we should think about the truth booth. Maybe we have across the league a truth booth. This little thing, by the way, can be easily put into a trunk and shipped across the country. So and most importantly, we have a 24-hour turnaround. You get the insights right the next morning after of, the renewal talking points, highly ranked fan motivations and ranked moments, lift activations, themes, also insights into potential pricing, upsell, ticket upselling. There's different use cases to use us. So regardless if you're team, sponsor, or agency, I think what we're providing is really from like the narrative insights to defending renewals or locking in further budget. And so, yeah, we're set up in under 2 minutes. We are, in terms of, to briefly touch on the pricing, we have bulk response pricing. So essentially, the more responses, the cheaper it gets. And the value is really a quick turnaround on unstructured verbal, spoken verbatim within such a short amount of time that usually those insights you only get through a focus group. And as we know, focus groups take forever and are very expensive. So, yeah. Let us know if you're interested in this. Me and my colleague Zach are here in the chat as well. I shared my LinkedIn link earlier too. I think Zach is going to share also my HubSpot link if you want to book with me directly. And would love to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for having me, Gina.
Thank you, Verena. Verena's in Miami. I'm down south. I saw we got some FIBA in the house. They're in Miami. Let's also get this group together. Let's go watch some women's sports.
Yeah,
Miami have a women's sports bar yet? Maybe we invest. Thank you. Verena, guys, hit up Verena, hit up me for information on that. Would love to see some of these awesome booths and just see women's sports experimenting with some of these new tools that are out there. So happy to bring this opportunity to you today. Okay, we've got in our last 10 minutes. We want to open it up to the community. Saw Maura wanted to hop on stage. So Maura, what's up? How are you?
Hi, Angela. Hi, Gina. I love how you run these meetings so much. So thank you. I'm a little new to the space.
Put it in the survey.
Oh, I will. I think I have, but I will again. Okay. So my question is a little bit more around, like you've talked about this in the past in terms of data measurement, quantifying ROI, and playing in the space of like the legacy system of measuring men's sports, how big is the audience, versus the brand multipliers that I know you've spent a long time talking about, and I think we all know, brand loyalty, the halo effect, and the affinity quotient that comes along. Do you have insights on best practices on how to include or quantify those elements as part of the conversation.
Sure. So when it comes to, brand affinity or, attributes or, likelihood to purchase, things like that are still going to be survey based, a bit longitudinal, and hopefully you're using things like a Talklytics or trying to find, better ways to get at more qualitative feedback on how somebody feels about a sponsor. Again, I don't think there's been a lot of innovation in that space. That's why I was excited about what Verena's doing, but that's really where you're anchored there. On the flip side, when it comes to actual ROI, what we're doing is two things. One, where we can, we use our sports data cloud to actually measure, create a control exposed methodology and measure actual purchases, not just of the fans to a specific sponsor, which we can see, but also things like share of wallet versus competition or on the category as a whole. So we're doing that today. Where we can and where the N is large enough, we can set up those methodologies, and we are working with teams right now to do that. The other side is attacking it from the angle that when brands and agencies make their decisions about who to work with and whether or not there was ROI there, they're measuring their ability to reach their desired target audience. So let's say I am an insurance company and you want me to sponsor your league. I want to know whether or not I am reaching heads of household who own automobiles and boats and maybe motorcycles and who make a certain income and who have insurance on their bill because they're the primary decider of the household. That's not ROI. We don't expect someone to necessarily go to a game and change their insurance provider. But if you know who your fans are, if you have an actual dynamic, deterministic profile of who you're reaching, then you can go back to those sponsors and say, hey, Geico, I can show you the composition of the audience that you reach through your partnership are the exact people that you are trying to reach. Or, our travelers, take cruises, Royal Caribbean, I've got cruisers. So we think that organizations and properties need to take more control of their first party data, think about how they build their data agility, enrichment partners, and understanding through surveys, through Sports Innovation Lab, through partners of who those fans are, so that you can come back at the end of a season or mid-season, and where you can, give surveys and brand affinity, where you can give actual purchases and ROI, but at a minimum, be able to tell them, I know my fans, I know who you're trying to reach, and look, we hit the right person. So that's our POV on ROI.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. It's helpful. It's just, what are the things, especially if you're an emerging league like us, right? We don't have the retro hindsight 2020, we did X and Y and Z. It's in front of us. So what are the things that we can quantify that are different and measurable? If it's higher trust, social sharing, fan inclusivity, that allow us to differentiate from like these legacy, measurement models that women's sports haven't necessarily participated in, and are. It's difficult when it's forward looking versus retroactive. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out.
One thing Josh noted in our chat, propensity models, right? Yeah. So let's look and show them not just the TAM, the growth trajectory of the number of fans in the gymnastics or in a certain sports community over time, and show a growth trajectory. So you want to make them feel like they're making an investment. Yes, there's, the asset they're buying today is small and valued at a lower number, but it's an investment because that asset is going to multiply in value. And so doing things like propensity models on existing sports fans for who are likely to lean into a new model like this, a new sport, a new league like gymnastics, those are models you can also do.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you, Gina.
Great question. Sarah, what's up? come join us on stage. Tell us what you guys are up to. And we actually partnered with Trailblazing to launch a programmatic audience extension for a financial brand. And it worked great. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think
excited
I
to see you.
think you know, I think what we love about the club and you all putting it together is just the connections that are made out of them. So I think quickly highlighting two big connections. One is the first campaign that we did do earlier in the year with a media partner. She Media is a women's sports club member. We ran a big campaign with a brand and represented a number of different media entities and properties, created custom content, displayed that custom content on She Media, but also amplified it using Trailblazing Audience Network and Sports Innovation Lab audiences to reach women's sports fans and entrepreneurs and small business owners. So it just goes to what you said, Gina, about like amplifying the reach of this program. And when we looked at the metrics, the completion rates, the engagements were off the chart and above industry standard benchmarks. The second great, so you know, cheers to that. The second great connection is with our ad tech partner that we're working on. That we just launched, Trailblazing Moments, which is a real-time in-game and highlight CTV opportunity for brands to surround the biggest moments in women's sports. The logo 3, the stoppage time goal. Brands can actually, using Transmit technology, Transmit is also a member of the Women's Sports Club. We came together after one of your meetings. He reached out and said, tell me what you're doing at Trailblazing. I think we might have an ad tech solution that could help more brands align with women's sports. And so we just launched it. It's on our LinkedIn and in the PR. We'll make sure everybody has it. But it's just a great way, again, to scale women's sports investment. If somebody comes up to me and says, there's not enough inventory in women's sports, we can all say, no, that is not true anymore. And we have created a solution to solve for that. So
I love it. So it's like, hey, you want to buy penalty kicks when everybody's kind of hearts are racing and people are leaning in. Well, now you guys have the technology and through CTV to kind of launch ads right around those kind of peak emotional moments for something like a penalty kick or overtime. I love it.
Or your Reebok and your Angel Reese and you have a 6 spot, or your Nike and your Asia Wilson, you have a 6 spot and you want to align that creative with Angel Reese's defensive block. You could do it in that moment in a picture-in-picture or an L-bar video. So we're not taking fans away from the game, but we are bringing them actually contextually relevant creative that like enhances their game experience. And I also harken back, Gina, to when we were on stage at the New Friends. The highest percentage of people consuming women's sports is through streaming platforms, because they are tech savvy. The audience is tech savvy because they've had to be. They just you can't just sit on your couch and pop on ESPN and find it. So streaming is where women's sports is being consumed, and that's why we also love this partnership. So
amazing. Congratulations. Make sure you drop the link into the press release and where folks can find out how to tap into the marketplace and start testing out that inventory. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's hard not to be a men's sports fan, but it's hard to be a women's sports fan. That's changing, but to your point, they've forced them into technology and let's lean into that then. Hey, that's where the future is anyway. So again, a competitive advantage. So Sarah, good to hear. You're always working the room. We want people to work the room. Yes, take our data, take our insights, but show up to our next event, because you know good things happen. We call it kind of the new boys club, if you will. Like we should be doing deals together. We're always saying that. So good to hear.
Exactly.
It's working out.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Verena. Thank you to all the Women's Sports Club members. Please reach out about Advertising Week, about programmatic audiences, about Talklytics, about Trailblazing Marketplace, about everything and anything that
and
has
what do
to
you
do
want
with
next? Where do you want us to throw the
and
data?
tell us what you'd love to hear us. Next in-person event is going to be Advertising Week, New York, October 7th. So mark the calendar. We'll also have our final a virtual meeting sometime probably in November. So thank you, everybody. We're right up at 2 o'clock. Have an amazing rest of your day
Gina.
and go buy more women's sports.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.